Wagwan, everybody. Welcome to the Diasporic History podcast, where we'll be speaking about history and as well family history and how history relates in terms of Caribbean people for the present as well as in the past, and how in the past, what that does and brings forth for what we are going through at present and what we can learn from our history, from our family, and take that moving forward. So I do hope you enjoy the podcast. And if you like it, please ensure to subscribe, like, and review. Thank you. Just want to thank everyone for coming back to the podcast, Diasporic History. And today we have Bryan from the Griot's table that will be speaking about their project and what it's all about. So let's get into the program, and we'll start with Bryan and his introductions. Go ahead, Bryan.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So my name is Bryan Birch. I've been cooking for over 2 decades. My wife and I have come together to create a new company, and that company is called Griot's Table. It's a company that really is about telling stories through food. We have a rich and interesting and diverse history, and the way that we often work is with the different migration patterns, with the different ways that people live and carry on culture. We find that those stories often get told through the food that we eat, why we eat it, why it's familiar to us. And so we find that matching what we eat to why we eat it, telling the stories around it, is really a new and exciting way that we can not only kind of give people something fulfilling and interesting, but also give them something that they find culturally nourishing.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And I guess, what was the inspiration behind Griot's Table and, telling that story of what inspired the creation?
Really and truly, it was my partner's creation. It was her idea. She told me that one day when she was traveling abroad, she was in Kenya visiting family, and the idea kind of came to her of, what is it that we love about food? What is it that we love about storytelling? What is it that makes the culture unique? And when you talk about all those different things and the different ways that they interact, she kind of started this whole project of bringing together these different ideas and making sure that we could come together to create them. And so she undertook this journey, and then luckily she brought me along with her. And I'm very happy to say that we've been doing it for the past couple of years. And we've really had some very interesting success stories, some very interesting people that we've worked with. And luckily, unfortunately, things are going well. But it's mainly because she had that bright idea of what does it mean to really tell a story and tell that story in a unique way through food.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that we talked before we were recording, and we'll probably get to that story for that. But I wanted to go to your tagline, which is Eat, Feel, Dream, which I think is very powerful. And, what does it mean to you, and how does it guide the experiences that you guys create?
Yes. So I think that has 3 big parts. The eat is really just about what we enjoy, why we enjoy. There's also this kind of interesting part of every dish that we have has different histories, and they may have a root to it. Maybe they started in West Africa, but it's traveled and it's become different things as it's gone different places. There's a story that we tell about Anansi's Odyssey, and in that story it talks about how Anansi started off in Ghana as a spider, and it was kind of almost like a godlike figure, and then it came across the ocean, and then the Caribbean and up to the Americas. It became something different, more of a trickster and more of almost a lighthearted notion character. And so with food, we really want to make sure that Eat tells that story. It starts somewhere. Maybe the ideas and the themes will change over time, but we try to make sure that a yam is a yam is a yam, except for in South America or Southern America versus sweet potato.
Yeah.
So we have the word, but what does it mean? Why do we eat it? Yeah. So we tell that kind of story. In terms of the feel, it's about how you feel when you eat. It's about, we all think that food is memory, and smell is memory, and sight is memory, and sound is memory, but what we eat can really take us to a place that we have a special kind of connection to. So whether it's when we're young, a special moment that we've had in life, that feel is about connecting what we eat to how we feel. And that kind of plays into how we dream, because it's not just about the past, it's also about the future.
Yeah.
And dreaming is important because without imagination, we're nothing. Where we can create things, we can do beautiful things, we can live the kind of life that we want to live, but only because we can imagine it.
Yeah.
When you can't imagine it and you don't see the future and the beauty in what can be, it's very hard to actually live it and to create what you want. So that's how eat, feel, and dream connect.
Yeah. I mean, it does really, when you smell a certain spice or you smell a certain food, it brings back a particular memory.
Exactly.
And that's, the connection that you're showing, which I think is just fabulous, because that's exactly how people feel, right? It just brings them back to a time that they remember and want to recreate it all the time.
Except for that one dish you had when you were sick. No one wants to recreate that, but
no.
It's still a fun memory.
Exactly. And so for you, how does, again, that, food functions as a storyteller, a griot, in the way that you create the dinners and, of course, the events, because you do events as well.
We do. So we use food to tell different journeys, to talk about why something happened, where it happened. We use it to trace migration patterns, and we use different kind of forms of art to match it. So sometimes we're matching music to a story with the kind of food that we're doing, because we have one dinner that we do, and it's about the Great Migration from the States, how you went from the South, and then different people went to North, and they went to West, and they went to different places, and kind of it just tells that story. So we use music to kind of match the food, and we start really in the 1900s and go up to present day. So we try and use different mediums as well, and not just have one thing that is interesting, which is the food, but also what happened to that food when it went to Detroit, when it went to Chicago, when it went to New York, when it went to LA, because it's always a different thing. And it's a similar notion. Sorry, just one more time. There's an interesting thing that happened as well. For example, ackee and saltfish, national dish of Jamaica, know it, love it, etc. But how do you get ackee and saltfish into Jamaica? So we kind of take that apart and we say, well, ackees came from Africa. Great. Ackee fruit gets planted in Jamaica. That's one part. The second part is that in Newfoundland, they have an excess of cod. They were looking to get rid of all their cod, and they were salting it and sending it all over the world. Some went down to Jamaica. They traded that for rum. All of a sudden, you have two dishes, or you have a new dish that gets created that no one would have thought this must be the national dish before everything else could have happened. So we try and tell stories and try and talk about historical perspectives and migration. Sometimes you do it only through food. Here's the dish. But sometimes you like to do it through other art forms as well, whether it's art or music.
Yeah, it does. It definitely gives that migration story to know that two totally different parts of the world connected one dish that ends up having to be the national dish of one particular country.
Yeah.
So how do you balance, honoring the traditions with creating new and innovative experiences around food?
It's always a bit of a tricky part, but I always like to think that culture is a bit it's plastic, it's elastic, it's ever changing. And even though there's something that you may love and connect to, there's always going to be an evolution of it. And it just happens because we move. Sometimes, for example, my parents came here from Trinidad when I was young. And so their idea of Trinidad and Trinidadian food is going to be very different than my idea of Trinidad and Trinidadian food, because I went when I was much older. So I got a very different version of it. And so keeping that in mind, we try to make sure that we're doing things with care, with respect, with the way of honoring the past, but not saying that because it was done this way before, it can only be done this way in the future. Again, it's about that idea of dreaming and imagining what you want to do and want to be and what you want to create. And there's a delicious tension, I will say, in creating something new that maybe is a bit unfamiliar or in an unfamiliar form, but definitely still has that familiar flavor.
How do you balance honoring tradition with creating new, innovative experiences around food?
I think it really comes down to, do you respect, do you appreciate what was there to begin with? Because myself, I'm from Trinidad. My wife is part Kenyan, part Malian. And so even when cooking at home, there are different things that we bring together that I would not say most people will be like, oh, these two things really must go together and they must go well. But I think that as culture is never static, it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. And especially in a city like Toronto, where you have so many different people from so many different parts of the world who create so many different dishes and open so many restaurants, and you get to experience so much. Part of that and the beauty of that is that you get to try things and then eventually take them, implement them into your own cooking, and you get to create all these new and beautiful experiences that you never would have thought of before. For example, Vietnamese cuisine in Toronto, pho or pho is everywhere, or many places. Most people have had it, but not to say everybody. There's always a new person out there. But a dish like that, which is so popular and so interesting and so famous, can also be combined with Caribbean cuisine in ways that are kind of delicious and unexpected. For example, I've had it more with oxtail and kind of a deep Jamaican flavor, but with rice noodles and many of the garnishes that go with pho traditionally. It's this interesting mix of two cultures of Jamaica and Vietnam that may not go together often, but you can find it in the food and eventually the people, because you're always getting new mixes of things when you have a new culture. So I think it's really important to pay attention to what you've done in the past, to honor what you've done, but not stay stuck in it. You get to create new and delicious and interesting things, but you have to be open to it.
Yeah. It's just it's a spin on what is existing, right?
Mhm.
And just making it more relevant for today's time and for the palate
Exactly.
for the people, right?
Yeah.
So I know that we were talking before we were recording about, beyond dinners, because Griot's Table does do events.
Mhm.
And if you could just speak on some of those offerings and what that means.
Yep. So some of the things that we do. So we have a dinner coming up for an art gallery, and they have this interesting exhibit that they're going to be opening, featuring a lot of artwork from the Sahel region, the northwest region of Africa. And during that dinner, we're going to be using that to we're going to be using food to mirror that idea. And we're going to be using the growing of the Malian Empire under Mansa Musa and how it kind of stretched and evolved and changed over time and absorbed different cultures and the different cuisines that came out of those cultures, and kind of became one larger idea. Or maybe not a singular idea, but all got engulfed into like one name, which is the Malian Empire. But going from things like dates and cheese are very popular, like different kinds of particular candies and snacks. But then because the empire grew and stretched and embodied parts of Senegal, parts of Gambia, parts of Mali, like all these other different dishes are also going to be included on the menu. So in matching the idea of what this artwork is, we're also going to be able to match the food to tell that story. And I think that's one of the interesting things that you get, because food is part of culture. Music and art are part of culture, and using them to bounce off each other, they don't crowd each other out, they actually enhance one another. So I think that's one of the big things that we try to do. We try to make sure that when we come to an event, we're not trying to take over and say, we're here now, this is the most important thing. We're there to support and enhance what's going on. And so we use the food to bring everyone together and to create a positive experience for all.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like a conduit to the event, and as you said, just to enhance it for what it is. So with the Griot's Table and with these events, what type of collaboration do you then use to make your event, make the menus, to decide what's going to be presented?
So my partner and I will often go through the different things, because Aisha's brilliant. She has interesting ideas and she's constantly inspiring me as well. And so if she has an idea, a thought, a way of doing something, oftentimes we'll bounce things off each other and try to create an idea, a theme, something new and interesting that can be part of each dinner. And because those dinners don't start and stop with us, it's like, oh, what do you have in mind? What do you want? What is our theme? We can start growing and bouncing ideas off each other at that point. And so as the number of people involved in the event will grow, oftentimes the ideas that we have may evolve. So it doesn't always have to be one thing. And even if it starts with us, it doesn't have to end with us. Because when you work with different people and they're bringing different things to the table, I think that letting them bring their best to the table and our best to the table creates a better situation for everybody. And whether it's the artist, whether it's a musician, I think that working together really does enhance the experience for everybody.
Yeah.
And that being said, we're also open to work with other chefs because there have been different dinners that we've put on. And it's not like I say, I make this dish, I'm the only one who can make it. You have to have it from me. I love to have different people's food as well. And I love that experience of I'm doing something, you're doing something. We're sharing and creating this experience together to make sure that it grows, as opposed to saying, this is ours, so only we can operate here.
Yeah. So you're just being open and receptive to whatever else may be on the table. And what else can you learn and take away from that as well, which is
Exactly.
a great experience to be able to further enhance a dish and expand on it, right?
Exactly. Because even as people tell stories at the dinners, we have different griots who come and they talk about the different experiences that I've discussed today. But they're all slightly different. Because you tell a story, you make a statement, a different question from a different person always comes up. A different memory from a different person will always come up. And so that connection is very real and is tangible. The discussion is always changing. So even though you're like, oh, I do this one thing and I only do that, it's actually different every time. And you can't fight that. That's part of life. You go with it. You say yes. You grow, you create, and you let that moment go where it will.
Yes, because two people from two different cultures may actually have the same feeling. They face not necessarily the same experience, but they may have a very similar memory experience with that particular food item, right?
Exactly.
So it's just one of those things. So for you, how has running Griot's Table kind of shaped your experiences and your thought process with food?
I think that it's really made me more expansive. It's made me think more so about food, not just in terms of what I like, but in terms of what can be. You cook for a long time, and like anyone who does things for a long time, you kind of get in a rut and you do certain things certain ways, and you, not that you don't want to try, but you stop actively trying it. And I think my favorite part about this is that it's pushed me to constantly think about food in a different way. How can it be new? How can it be different? Not just what story is it being told, but how are we going to tell that story in a few bites that will make people really remember that experience? And so food is great. Food is travel. Food is people. Food is culture, because on some level, food travels and we all get to experience it.
And so, with running Griot's Table, what would you like for the guest to walk away from their experiences? Is it just the food? Is it just the experience? What exactly, or is it that you're trying to enable in them to walk away with?
I think that when people come to an experience with Griot's Table, it's not to be, not to oversell it, not to say you have to be a different person when you leave, but the experience can be transformational because you're not just having a dinner that's a meal. We want you to come in and have an experience. We want you to come in. We want you to meet different people. We want you to talk about different things that maybe you don't talk about in ways that you don't think about often. We want you to see art reflected in food. We want you to see or hear stories that are told through song and how that relates to the food. We want you to see how the culture can shift and change and how ingredients can match that and how these things all work together. So for me, one of the important things is saying the food is good, the food is there, the food will speak to you, but it's really the whole experience, who you're with, how you're communicating with them, what you're hearing and taking in. And as you take all that in, hopefully that would change something in you in a positive way and leave a good residue.
So just the whole experience and using all of your senses.
Exactly.
Perfect. And, what 3 words can you use to describe Griot's Table?
I'm tempted to say eat, feel, dream, because it is her tagline.
Yes.
But if I weren't to say that, it would be open-minded. Because being open-minded doesn't just relate to the food, but it relates to the whole experience. Aisha is wonderful at creating things that are unique, that are beautiful, that are artful, that are best experienced with a childlike wonder. And so when you see that kind of beauty, when you see that kind of interaction that you can get with an idea, it's best to face it like a child would with a curiosity. And I think that I try to match her energy in that sense to make sure that the food also brings about that curiosity, that childlike wonder, and kind of that touching of both what has been in the past and what we can do as we go forward.
That's a great analogy for describing it.
Yeah.
And, what are your hopes for the future of Griot's Table?
I think that there are a couple different things. So we want to grow. We want to make it kind of bigger and international, but not for international sake, but because in doing things that are international, you get to meet more people, you get to expand to more cultures, and you get to tell more stories. And it's the storytelling and the affecting of people through that we find really interesting, because that's really where connection is made. And so whether someone is in Mali, in Kenya, in Peru, in the Caribbean, like all of these places have different stories and different histories, and they're all so interesting. I'm always open to that idea of when we travel, when we meet with people, when we convene, what stories do we tell? What foods do we eat? How is this an ever-growing experience? Because everyone does it. Yeah. So communing through it, I find to be a beautiful thing.
Definitely. And then how do you see food continuing to serve as a bridge between generations and, of course, cultures?
I find the generation ones to be interesting because I'm in the middle. I have a father now who's getting old. I have a son who's very young. And as someone in the middle and kind of bridging those two ideas, I don't know what it's interesting. I don't talk to my dad much about food. We talked about it growing up. Yeah. But if I were to ask him today, I have no idea what he thinks about Toronto versions of Caribbean food. And I don't know that he's really into it, that he's kept up with it. But in me, it's like, I see it. I love the changes that happen with it. I know many different chefs of and around my age who are like constantly doing new and different, what I say interesting. But it also then makes you wonder, what will it be like when your son is old enough to eat and eat without you? Not just eat, but eat without you. What will they see? What will they experience? How will it continue to change? And I think one of the great things with a city like Toronto is because that culture is not static, I can't wait to see, or for him to tell me really, what he's doing 20 years down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for those who's never attended the Griot's Table, an event, why should they experience the Griot's Table?
I think that people should experience it because it's really trying to bring culture together. It's trying to bring ideas together, and it's trying to match beauty and storytelling and unique experiences to what people get to kind of live in their everyday life. And even though we're not going to go out for big and interesting and fancy dinners all the time, celebrating and appreciating when you get to really honor both yourself, the experience of what you're doing, and doing it in a unique way really is enriching. And so we want to make sure that people get to experience it not for its own sake, but because it's enriching, because it's interesting. There's a version of like a cultural nutrition, a cultural nourishment that we're doing. And so hopefully people will get to try us. Hopefully people will enjoy it and using us as a part of their celebration. Because again, we provide something that people can build on, that different versions of art and beauty can build on. And so I think we're a perfect starting point for a great and beautiful experience.
Yeah, and definitely it brings a sense of pride as well with food, because I know growing up here in North America, it may not be seen as something that is, oh, what are you eating? What is that? That's a different smell. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like you're bringing a sense of pride, a sense of ownership. This is, part of me and your identity as well with that. So I just want to thank you for that. And I'll make sure to put all of the information about Griot's Table in the show notes so people can connect. Because I know you have a couple of events coming up.
We do.
Is it one in November? Is there one in December coming up as well?
So we're hopefully working right now on a Christmas-themed party that we're going to be doing in December. In November, we're doing a couple of different events.
Okay.
And like I said, we're doing an art gallery opening. We just did an event called Melamoon, which is a pitch event last weekend. And so we catered for them. And that was a beautiful, really interesting event because it was an all-Black supported essentially venture capitalists fund, and they were doing different pitches for different ideas. And at the end of it, They selected a winner, but it was a beautiful experience and it felt like everybody won. So being part of these new and different experiences is something that we're really proud and happy to be doing. And we can't wait to bring it to more and more people.
Perfect. And, as we close this episode, is there any lasting words that you want to say in regards to Griot's table?
I think that one of the big things is just, you were talking a minute ago about that idea of when you're younger and sometimes you're trying these different foods and like, oh, I don't know if I should like bring my cultural food. Like I'm trying to fit in, and doing something very different can sometimes be seen as off-putting. But there's a beauty to being able to be your own person, to be independent. And even though it's tempting to say, no, I just need to fit in, hopefully, as the culture is changing, as time is changing, people are now more proud, more eager to be able to say, this is mine, this is beautiful, this is enough. And as more and more people do it, that kind of sharing, that crossing cultures, breaking down those barriers that people sometimes have of what's acceptable and what's not, will continue to change. And there'll be a more kind of welcoming appreciation for the different foods that people have. And to be honest, Caribbean food for many years in Toronto has been seen as kind of a cheap, affordable, almost second-hand offering. And I'm excited that we're not that anymore. We're now being able to be presented as something different, that's beautiful, that offers a different vision of what Caribbean food and people are. And so I'm glad that we've broken out of that box and are now getting to expand. And Griot's table is happy to say, we're here to stay. We're here to evolve, and a different way to kind of think about and appreciate African Caribbean culture, because all the lands of the diaspora from Africa do bring something unique and beautiful to the table. And getting to experience it now through Griot's table is something that we're excited to continue to do.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bryan, for coming on to the podcast and speaking about Griot's table, because, again, it's a sense of identity. Yes, it may not be part of, let's say, direct genealogy, but it is a different type of genealogy when you break down the food.
For sure.
So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hoped you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and write a review for the episode wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you.